Welcome to the Dr. Donna podcast, here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Innovative, evidence-based recovery that helps to identify intergenerational trauma, allowing for freedom and embracement of the healing process. Today, episode 132, How Technology Affects Each Generation, Part 2. And now your host, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee.
I'm Dr. Donna. Thank you for listening to my podcast and welcome again. I want to pick up on this generation thing. I was referring to a book that I think is revolutionary called Generations by Dr. Jean M. Twenge, Twenge. I say Twenge and then I say Twenge. I think I'm going with Twenge. Anyway, so Dr. Jen's revolutionary book, and I just want to say again, if you haven't read this, take some time and read it. I really think it has so much, there's so much in it. And I think, coming from a position where I think I come from a position where I understand human beings a lot more than most, just because I've been listening to all of you for 50 years in therapy. I've learned a lot from you. And, loneliness and isolation is one of the biggest issues I've heard for, probably since technology really hit. Because I was a therapist before technology. I started out being a therapist before we had those big honker things they called mobile phones. I don't even know if you know what I'm talking about. But they were like big. They were like little computers. Now, I'm not talking little like a smartphone. I'm talking about, you had to pull the antenna up and, that happened after I became a therapist. I'm just giving you some ideas about where I'm coming from. And back then, we were talking about how, like in couples counseling, how do you guys communicate? I'm going to sit here and I'm going to listen to you communicate. And I might be able to identify some areas that you could improve on so that you could understand each other. I've said this before, I'll say it again. When I've seen couples in therapy, even the ones who have committed, like gone out and, had sex with prostitutes or, gone outside the marriage and really, broken trust. They walk in, they say, we just have a huge communication problem. We can't seem to understand each other. Oh, okay. I have never said this before, and I'm just being facetious now. I've never said, hey, well, why don't you each get a smartphone and one of you go outside and one of you stay inside and try and talk about these things. Go on FaceTime. Try and talk to each other about these things. Never have I said that. I would never say that because these, when you are in a relationship with somebody, you are in their face. You might be living together. Most likely you are. But even if you're not, you're going to be in their face once in a while. And, learning how to pick up cues while you're listening to somebody is kind of important. And you can't do that if you can't see each other or see what each other is doing. One of the things about me, people know, if they know me well enough to have sat with me, is that my hands are moving the whole time that I'm talking. I have a lot of expression on my face. My body has a lot of expression. And, the story I make up about that, which, is kind of irrelevant but funny, is that when you're my size, you better have a lot of expression. You're not going to be seen or heard by anybody. You're a white, female, old woman who's really small. And so you better have some expression going on, or you will not be heard and you will not be seen. Except by maybe predators, okay? So anyway, so I do so much online now. People don't really know that about me very much. If you've sat in my office with me before, you really know that that is true. People have mentioned it before. Boy, you've got a lot of expression. You bet I do. Because I don't want you to miss anything that I'm saying. You're paying me money so that you can listen to me say it, and I want you to know that I know that you're getting it. So anyway, going back. So I noticed that there were some things about Gen Zers that I've noticed as a therapist. One is that, and she talks about this in her book too, but I just want to validate that they're not terribly interested in having a sexual relationship with anybody. They're not terribly interested in having a relationship with anybody. You talk to them about what they want in their future. They're hard workers. They work hard. You guys, or they, well, I have suspicion you're not probably not listening to me, but if you are, understand I'm not avoiding you. I'm not validating you, okay? I'm just saying that, your primary relationships, in my opinion, have been with technology. And that's not real. Hate to tell you, it really isn't real. And it's impacted the way that human beings are designed to mature, to leave their mark on the world, and to take care of each other. So let's say that we have a whole generation of people who have decided not to have children, who've decided not to be in relationships, who don't really know how to be in relationships. So the population drops a lot. Now, in some ways, that might be okay because we've got too many people on the planet. We've surpassed the point where the planet can take care of us all. So, okay, that might be all right. But let's say, because we're human beings and we will never not be human beings, at least to my knowledge, okay, that might not be true in a while, is that we have a strong desire to connect. We have a strong desire to couple up. It's been true for as long as we have kept records. People want to connect. And as they age, into their teens and 20s, they want to couple up and say, fall in love and get in primary relationships. And along with that is a desire to have family, to have children. One of the things that has happened, and I think this didn't start with the Gen Zs. This was true for, I think it's been true since the Gen X. I don't think it was necessarily true for my generation because we lived differently then. But a lot of generations like Gen Xers, Millennials, Gen Zs have substituted children for pets. Treat pets like children. Have birthday parties for pets. Now they have insurance policies for pets. They have, you guys put out huge amounts of money for hip replacements, knee replacements, cancer treatments for your pets. Pets have their own room in the house. The difference is that they don't grow up and leave home. They grow old and die, and then you get a new one. And so there's always somebody who depends on you, somebody young that needs you. And to me, as a therapist, I think, what need does that fulfill? That there will always be someone there who needs you, and so they won't abandon you, except when they die, and they die usually before children do, if you're lucky. But how about this? How about as you age into old age, and now I'm kind of there, but I have friends and, have cared for people who are like in the next generation, that's silent. They were part of the silent generation. And their pets can't care for them. Their pets can't, they have me. So, that, but they have me because we've been in relationships for years, for decades. We know one another. We've been with each other. We've had major conversations. We've had conflict with each other. We've worked it out. We've sat in the same rooms together for decades. Not every single day, but enough that we know each other so that, when we get to a point where we're not capable, say something happens, say you have a stroke, we know what one another wants. We know what kind of life we're willing to tolerate as really old people. And we can help each other. Your pets aren't going to be able to do that for you. They won't. And if you don't have relationships where you've really known each other, not like been in Reddit groups, okay? Where, okay, so is your Reddit group going to help the doctor decide whether or not to pull the plug on you? They don't know you well enough. And do you want that? That's a question, a real question. Now, I don't necessarily want my child to be in that position. But guess what? I have friends that I spend a lot of time with face to face. Having dinner, going to each other's houses, having game nights. I'm too old to have kids now, thank goodness. But, it's like, I've already done that. I have grandchildren. I have friends where they have kids because some of my friends are younger than me. We've nurtured those friendships. So I go to their kids' games, and cheer for their kids and develop and nurture these relationships. Now, it's interesting that some of my younger friends spend a lot of time on their phones to me. And I always say, look, if you want to have a conversation with me, let's plan some time to get together for coffee, or at least have a conversation on the phone where we're actually talking to each other on the phone, because I'm not going to text this conversation. There's too much missed that helps to create relationship. Okay, so for instance, I have a friend that, I've had for maybe 4 or 5 years. And I know that when we sit down to talk to each other, her legs are moving like crazy. Like she's getting ready to run. It's like, zzz, and I'm sitting there. I finally said, when we talk, do you realize that your legs look like they're running away? What is that about? And we got in a really interesting conversation about her anxieties. She's younger than me. Her anxieties about sitting down with another person face to face, and guess that her legs were trying to get her out of there. And I said, well, okay, I'm not going to personalize that. You're just trying to leave me. She said, no, I think I do it all the time. Unless I'm texting or, on Zoom or something. And I was like, okay, well, that's a pretty deep reality, that you're so scared of sitting down with another human being that your legs are trying to get you out of there. This is the impact of technology. Because when you don't have that all the time, you are, it's like in my generation when we didn't have that, it's like you were absolutely forced to sit in the same classroom. And even if somebody in the class in the third grade was doing something that made you just want to throw up, and it's happened, okay? Oh, I'll tell you. So you're sitting in a classroom, you're in the third grade, and the person across from you picks their nose. That is just disgusting. And you just feel like you want to get away, but you can't. And so you have to sit for a whole year next to somebody who does that. And guess what? You create a defense mechanism to deal with people who do things that you don't like. You don't necessarily have to go up to them and say, hey, you know what? I wish you'd stop picking your nose. You don't. You just develop what we call in the therapy world resilience. And that's one of the things that I have noticed has decreased because I think it's the technology thing. Dr. Twenge, she hit it right on the button. I sat with a young woman who is making a transition from female to male. And by the way, all the people I know that have been making the transition, it's from female to male. I know 2 young men who are, more transgender, but they're not making a transition. They're not doing anything surgically to stop their being male. They're just, what we used to call in the olden days. They do cross-dressing. They, they're gay. They like men. Okay. Anyway, so all these women that are, making a transition from female to male, I get it. I do. I mean, I'm a pretty old woman and, privilege, I guess I have some because I'm white, but that pretty much ends my privilege. But, it just infuriated me how when I was young, I would see that even as a kid, the guys got way more privilege than we did. I didn't want to be in the house cleaning, taking wax off the floor and re-waxing it and doing all the laundry and cleaning his room. I didn't want to be doing that. I wanted to be outside playing. I wanted to be outside with my Tomboys of America club that I started. That's what I wanted to be doing. And I thought, why don't my brother, my uncle, my cousins, why don't they have to come here and do this? So we can all go outside together. And it's been like that for my whole life. And there were many times in my life, even as a fully grown adult, that I thought, I wonder what it'd be like to be a guy. And just, it's like, I want that job, so I think I'll go have it. Or, I found out that in my first master's level job, I got paid half as much as my counterpart who was the exact same age, got the exact same degree, the exact same year, and didn't have 2 years of prior experience. I wanted that. And I thought, wow, the only thing that's different here is that he's a guy. I get it. But being born female, has taught me, one of the things about me that people who know me know is that I'm pretty resilient. I could pretty much deal with almost any situation that comes up. So far, in my life, I haven't found one yet that's impossible for me to deal with. And so what that's done, it's made me very resilient. What about resilience? What's so important about that? Well, instead of laying down and just like, okay, that's the end of my life, I figure, okay, how can I'll give you a perfect example of my own resilience. By the time I was 22 years old, I was 22 years old when this happened. I had a job. I always had a job. But my job this year between my, in the summer between my bachelor and master's, starting my master's degree, I had a job working in a gas station. Now, this was right in the beginning when they were thinking, people can pump their own gas. So, I would go out. My job was to go out and greet people, but if they wanted to pump their own gas, they could. And I was also in a residential neighborhood, so they didn't want, there wasn't a lot of traffic, but people who lived in the residential neighborhood could come and get gas without going a long distance. So I was sitting there one day, and I remember very well. I was reading the trilogy by Tolkien. Can't remember exactly which one I was on. I think I was on the last one, but anyway. So I was reading that, sitting in the front there, because it wasn't really busy. And it was a Saturday, and I was also listening to the Utah-BYU football game, which is always a big game. Okay. So I was listening to that, reading a book, because that's what I do. I do many things at once. And listening to see if anybody would come to the gas station. When I looked up, there were two guys we have ski masks then, but they had on these like bandana things around their face with guns pointed at me. And I went, this just can't be good. No, it's a bad idea. And they said, give me your money. Well, we had, anything more than $20 was in this floor safe that I certainly didn't have access to. So I gave them the $13 that I had and said, hey, that's all I've got. And I thought there was this, now see, this is a resilience thing, right? I was already really resilient. So there's two guys with guns pointed at me, and they tell me we're going into the back room. And I look at my watch, and I thought, in about 5 minutes, that same guy that comes every Saturday to fill up his 2 50-gallon drums of gasoline for his farm out in, up north, he's going to show up because he always comes at this time. So if I can just keep these guys kind of at bay, he'll come. And it goes ding, 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 ding when somebody, drives their car. And he'll come in and be pissed that I'm not out there to talk to him. He's pumping gas. And maybe he'll help me. So already I was able to, okay, I'm just not going to like freak out and whatever and think that my life is over or try and run away because, I'm not as fast as a bullet. So I thought through that. And sure enough, because I was able to say, look, you guys, there's a foresight, blah, 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 la, la, la. And don't you know, here he came. Ding, 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 ding. He walks in, he looks around, he goes, what's going on here? What the heck is this? Why aren't you out there? And those two guys just walked out the door. That is resilience. It's not brilliance. It's not I'm bigger than you, so, because I am not. But, it was based on I'd had enough interaction with enough people in my life face to face where I knew that that somehow there was always going to be an answer. There was a way. That's resilience. And that's what I think, Gen Zers just don't have much of. And I worry about that with good reason. I mean, their suicide rate is phenomenal. They are depressed. They're anxious. I just can't believe what's happening to them emotionally and psychologically. We're going to talk more about this next time. So think about what you would do if you were faced with those kind of situations. Are you resilient?
Thank you for listening to the Dr. Donna podcast here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Dr. Donna podcast is copyright 2023 Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The SoulWorks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. SoulWorks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, we would love to have you join us in the SoulWorks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.